The Epstein files controversy just took another dramatic turn. JD Vance is admitting the administration badly mishandled the rollout, but he insists that doesn't mean officials were trying to hide something. So what actually went wrong? What do the files really prove? And what about the explosive allegations involving powerful people and Donald Trump? Vance's answers raise even more questions.
We eventually collected 6 million documents as part of the effort. The president, people say the president was forced into releasing the documents about the fact the guy was obviously a scumbag. And again, to go back to defending Donald Trump, I know people don't want to hear this these days, but who was the guy?
But it's clear that he was trying to get in contact with people that he felt were influential. It was clear that he was trying to get people to get together on the island and meet at parties.
JD Vance makes a blunt admission: the administration badly mishandled the communication surrounding the Epstein files. The rollout created confusion and frustration, and officials clearly failed to manage the public's expectations. But Vance says that mistake shouldn't automatically be interpreted as an attempt to hide something.
Well, again, say this with all candor, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. We just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No.
The controversy grew when officials appeared to showcase binders and make major claims about the Epstein material. That presentation made people expect explosive revelations from the files. But according to Vance, the way it was handled ultimately damaged public trust and created even more suspicion.
I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said, the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were
100%,
standing in front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So let me try to.
Well, what was the purpose of that performative display of the Epstein files? And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort.
But Vance says the Epstein story goes much further back than the recent document release. In his view, the original investigation may have been too narrowly focused on Epstein himself. That, he believes, could have prevented investigators from fully exploring the possibility of a much broader conspiracy.
I'm one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole we could go down, most of them today. Look, the original sin of the Epstein investigation, and obviously I'm biased here, but it was not what Donald Trump and the administration did in 2025. It was, you have to go back to 2007, 2008. The original Alex Acosta investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, where he basically dropped the federal charges. I think Epstein ended up getting prosecuted on some sort of local thing. But the original warrant, you go to the original warrant back in 2008, what was he looking for? What was he allowed to look for? What were they collecting? It was not looking at a broader conspiracy.
Vance draws an important line between suspicion and proof. He says the files don't prove that broader crimes never happened, but he also hasn't seen definitive evidence confirming the larger theory. In other words, unanswered questions may remain, but that doesn't automatically make every allegation a fact.
Anything that existed from the 80s and 90s up to 2006, 2007, anything that existed that we didn't get back then was disappeared. Right, so when people say, has what you've seen on the inside make you think that that Epstein never blackmailed people or that Epstein never engaged in broader sex trafficking? No, absolutely not. What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed after 2006, 2007.
Vance also pushes back against the idea that President Trump was simply forced to release the Epstein files. He says millions of documents were eventually collected and released to the public. But he acknowledges that the process took much longer than it should have, fueling even more frustration and suspicion.
We eventually collected 6 million documents as part of the effort. The president, people say the president was forced into releasing the documents. again, the idea that Donald Trump could not have killed that legislation, especially with the United States Senate, is a joke. He absolutely could have killed it. What did he do? He actually said, nope, we're going to release these files. He thought, he was annoyed by the story. He was annoyed by the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad. By the way, do I think there is I've never seen a single piece of credible evidence that the President of the United States engaged in wrongdoing with minors, ever.
The discussion then turns to one of the biggest unanswered questions. Was Epstein using a network of powerful people for influence or blackmail? Vance acknowledges that several theories exist about Epstein's relationships and motives, but he says those theories remain theories because they haven't been definitively proven by the evidence.
I think there are a few different options. I mean, look, man, you and I could literally do 2 episodes about this. I've gone on down to every rabbit hole. There's this funny New York Times story that's somewhat true, somewhat false, but where Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, says, well, we know JD's a conspiracy theorist on this. Like, I am, actually. I've gone down every rabbit hole here. Look, so there's the theory that whether it was American intel or foreign intel, that Epstein was sort of using sort of the sex ring to blackmail rich and powerful people.
Vance then addresses one of the most politically explosive allegations, the claim that Donald Trump was blackmailed by Epstein. His argument is that the evidence he has seen simply doesn't support that conclusion. For Vance, a serious allegation like this requires serious evidence, not just an association or suspicion.
About the fact the guy was obviously a scumbag. And again, to go back to defending Donald Trump, I know people don't want to hear this these days, but who was the guy? People say Donald Trump was blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. Who was the guy who narked on Epstein to the Palm Beach police? That's in the Epstein files.
Right.
It was Donald Trump.
He also kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago.
He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. It's just, again,
well, it's obvious that Epstein was a sick man.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty.
So what should the administration have done differently? Vance's answer is straightforward. Review the files, protect victims, make the necessary redactions, and release everything that can legally be released as quickly as possible. He believes clearer communication could have prevented much of the controversy that followed.
Say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
I think that we should have just dropped everything at the very beginning, and obviously it takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims and so forth, but we should have just done it as quickly as possible.
But releasing everything isn't as simple as it sounds. Vance explains that people named in the documents can fall into very different categories, including victims, witnesses, associates, or alleged participants. That makes the review process extremely sensitive because releasing a name without context could create a completely false impression.
But some of the stuff that was redacted, some of the names that were redacted weren't victims.
So, yeah, I've looked into this, and my understanding of this, having looked at a lot of this, but not all of it, is that it is sometimes hard to draw a distinction between victim and co-conspirator. And let me highlight this in a very sort of obvious way. Ro Khanna, who's been one of the loudest voices on the Epstein file.
And despite all the unanswered questions, Vance says he cannot prove the larger theory surrounding Epstein. He believes the story may point towards something much bigger, but suspicion alone isn't enough to establish exactly what happened. For him, the real issue is finding definitive evidence that can separate proven facts from speculation.
But it's clear that he was trying to get in contact with people that he felt were influential. It was clear that he was trying to get people to get together on the island and meet at parties. So there was something he was doing where he was trying to either influence people or compromise people.
Correct.
So it's not, there's some sort of an operation that was going on.
There is a story there, and I will go to my deathbed believing there's a story there, but I can't prove it. And I promise you there's not some document that at least I'm hiding that allows us to prove exactly what was going on and how.